Hey guys, yesterday we talked about geometric sequences, and so now we're going to take that and we're gonna see if we can figure out a specific term in a sequence. So if I wanted to, so looking at example 5, it says given the sequence, write the rule, and it says in terms of n, and then determine the eighth term. So right now we have the first term, so 3 would be the first term, 12 would be the second term, 48 would be the third term, so on and so forth. So what we could do if we wanted to is we realize here, so if I look at this, I know I'm just multiplying by 4 each time. And so I could just keep multiplying by 4 until I get to the eighth term somewhere out here. So if you wanted to do that, you could do that. But that would become really tedious if I asked for, like, let's say the 50th term. Okay, you wouldn't want to do that. So there is a nice formula that will give us the answer without us having to go through all that. And it's this formula right here. So I'm going to explain what that means here. So A, and this is called a subscript, N, is the actual term I'm looking for. So here we're looking for the eighth term. So we're actually looking for what's called A subscript 8. So A subscript 8 actually represents the eighth term. So we would say A8 is the eighth term, and that's what we're actually looking for. So A subscript 1 means the first term. So, and it actually says that right here, first term. Okay. So A, this thing here means first term. So what's the first term of this? So the first term of this sequence would be 3. So then A1 would be 3. So the 3 here represents the A1 in the formula. All right, so if I'm looking for the eighth term, so any term, again, this could be the 100th term, and the formula would be the same. I just plug in a different number for n. So A1 represents the first term. R, so let me erase this. If you remember what we talked about yesterday, R is the common ratio. And again, that's what you're multiplying by each time to get to the next term. So if I look here, to get from 3 to 12, I'm multiplying by 4. So to get from here to here, I just multiply by 4. And then I do the same thing to get to 12 to 48. We talked about how to find that yesterday. So the common ratio is 4. And then it says R is raised to the power of n minus 1. Again, n is what term, or the number of the term I'm looking for. So A8 represents the term itself, whereas 8 would be n here. Again, it's the location of the term. N is the location, whereas AN is the actual term itself. So anyway, so since I'm looking for the eighth term, I'm going to raise 4 to the 8 minus 1 power. So you could just go ahead and put 7, but just so I'm kind of writing out the formula here, I want to make sure you understand. So to look for any term in any sequence, all I need is the first term, the common ratio, and then the actual term I'm looking for, or sorry, the location or the number of the term I'm looking for. So if I'm looking for the 12th term, then n would be 12, so on and so forth. And then I'm just going to plug this into my calculator, and I have actually not worked this out yet, so I'm going to work this out. Now here's the thing I'm going to say. With these types of problems, you're going to get big numbers. So, and this one is somewhat big. So the answer to this problem, unless I did it wrong, is 49,000. 49,152. And that's it. So that would be, so we would say A8 equals that number. So A8 equals this. So this would be the eighth term. And again, you could have just kept multiplying by 4. And the reason it's so big is if I multiply even 48 times 4, that's going to be a somewhat big number. And then we're just continuing to multiply bigger numbers times 4, which means they get up there pretty fast. So let's do one more example just to make sure you understand. And then you'll have just 3 problems to do on the homework. So the next one, it says given the sequence, so our sequence is down here, it says let's find the 7th term. And again, you could just keep doing, multiplying by whatever you need to get to the 7th term. Now let me write the formula out before we actually do this. So the formula is A n, again that just means that's the nth term, is the first term, which is a1, times the common ratio to the power of n, and hopefully you're not confusing. Let me make my r a little bit more extreme there. N minus 1, so you're not confusing my r's and n's. Okay. So again, an is the term I'm looking for. So I'm looking for the 7th term, so I'm looking for a7. And what we'll actually do tomorrow is, instead of finding a specific term, what if I actually give you a specific term and you need to find the first term? So I actually won't be giving you the sequence itself. I'll be asking you to find the first term rather than a specific term. Well, the first term is a specific term, but anyway. So a1 is the first term. So what's the first term of this sequence? Well, it's 100. All right, and then times the common ratio. Now, if you notice, to get to the next term, I'm dividing by 2. Now, that does not mean the common ratio is 2, because the common ratio is what are you multiplying by each time. Well, to get from 100 to 50, I am multiplying by half. Now, you could write a half here, but I'm actually going to write 0.5, same difference. So 0.5, you can write a half if you want, that's fine. And again, this is multiplication here, that's a decimal. And again, the way you can get the common ratio is just take any term and divide by its previous term. We talked about that yesterday. Okay, so 25 divided by 50 is 1/2. And then I raise it to the power of n minus 1. Well, n is 7. Remember, n represents the location of the term, in this case the 7th position. So it would be 7 minus 1, which is to the 6th power. So now this will actually, I believe, give me a decimal. So let me type this in. So 0.5, I'm raising it to the 6th power, and then multiplying that times 100. So this would give me 1.5625. It is possible to get decimals, so don't let that throw you. And again, we could have just kept dividing by 2 until we got to this point here. And again, with these problems that we're doing, you could do that without too much hassle. But if I asked again for, like, let's say the 100th term, you definitely don't want to do that, because it'll be really, really tedious to do that. So that's what you're going to do today, or sorry, tomorrow. Let me know if you have any questions, and hope you guys are staying safe.